Welcome to the File Play YouTube channel.
Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Millbilly. Welcome to Coffee with Foul Play, our podcast entitled Justice Denied. And we're up to part 4. And I'm the host of the podcast, and my name is Dr. Silkman. All of us on the panel would like to welcome all of our regular listeners, and of course, we welcome new listeners to our podcast as well. So far, we have managed to have 661 subscribers to our channel, to our Foul Play channel. And we'd like to thank all of you guys for your wonderful support and for your constant feedback. You know, we keep a fairly casual approach here on the Foul Play channel. We work as a team and we value your feedback. It doesn't matter whether you're a guilter, we value everyone's opinion and we try and answer your questions as best as we can. So far on the Foul Play channel, our videos have collected over 122,000 views. And that's awesome, guys. And thank you so much. We've only been in existence for a few short months, and we have grown together as a team. And we're here, guys. Of course, our main objective is to see justice being done for both Brendan and Stephen. Joining me today are our regular researchers. We have Bibi, Kelly85, we have Christy, Millbilly. Hopefully joining us will be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And on chat, monitoring the chat on YouTube, we have both Sammy and Zoe. So please ask your questions and they will let us know. And we'll try and answer them during the podcast. And I'm really delighted. We're all really delighted with our new guest researchers. We have the YouTuber, Linda Kay, and we also have Susan Sims. And we like to welcome both of them to our podcast. And as I said before in the introduction, we take a casual approach. We're not perfect. We do make mistakes and we value your feedback. And what we do on the podcast is that we chronologically go through MAM 1 and we present slides and we discuss them. And hopefully, guys, through the chat, you'll be able to give us questions and hopefully we'll be able to answer them. All right, well, look, welcome, guys. We'll make a start, but before we commence the podcast, I'd like to invite the YouTuber, Linda Kay. Linda, can you say a few words about yourself and what got you interested in this case? Linda.
Sure, thank you. I guess I, like everybody else, just watched the documentary and seen all the things that didn't match, didn't go together, got frustrated, and just decided to do something about it. And I started watching people on YouTube and through Facebook groups and decided, hey, I want to find out what's going on here. There's just so this is a case that just twists the mind, and I guess I like a challenge and I'd like to see justice. So that's my thing.
Super.
And
super.
That's it.
Oh, fantastic. If I could just ask quickly, Linda, is there any particular part of the case that interests you more, or do you have like a global interest in the case, Linda?
I pretty much got a global thing in it, but the RAV was my main thing.
No.
It twists me up. It does.
Well, welcome, Linda. If you probably remember from our last week's podcast, we managed a world record, and BB will tell you this. We covered one slide in 2 hours on the RAV.
I know, right?
So, well, look, Linda, welcome, and it's a real pleasure that you have joined us as a guest researcher. We really appreciate that. And thank you, Linda. And our other guest researcher today is Susan. Susan, have you got a couple of words on what got you interested in the case?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I first watched Ma'am in about May of 2016, and
Yes.
I immediately went and had my best friend watch it. We watched it together again, and I've just been obsessed ever since.
Yes.
It was very, very sketchy to me. I've read a lot of the transcripts. I haven't been through the whole trial, but
Yes.
I got involved in Facebook groups and subscribed to probably 25 different YouTubes and
Wow.
the TikTok Reddit. I'm more of a lurker there
That's
than
huge.
anything else, but I'm just very interested in
Super.
in
Yeah.
the case.
Fantastic. Susan, is there any particular aspect of the case that interests you more than another? Do you have a particular interest?
Well, I'm interested in all of the evidence that the state put out that
Wow.
is so iffy. I mean,
Yes.
none of it makes sense to me.
No, it certainly doesn't make sense to us. And thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you,
We're going
Dr.
to both,
Sussman.
we're going to both value.
Susan,
Yes.
Susan is also our songwriter.
Oh, Susan, you want to tell us a little bit more
Susan
about
Sims. She
your
wrote
songs?
the 12 Days of Injustice, yes,
Fantastic.
for us.
It
Yes.
occurred, I don't know, it just came into my head one night that might be fun to try and write a little song to that tune. And I had a couple of ideas, and then I came on to the Foul Play office chat, was chatting with several of you and mentioned it, and several people encouraged me to continue.
Yes.
So I got off the chat and I started writing, and about 2 hours later, I had the
Wow.
lyrics.
Well, Susan, I'm sure I collectively join with everybody else and those that have listened to it. What a magnificent job you did, and also it was sung by Mayed, I believe, on with guitar.
Yes, it
So,
was, and she did a fantastic job.
whew, awesome, awesome. And just to let the listeners know, please check if you haven't listened to it. You need a good laugh, a bit of stress relief. Go check out that song. And awesome, Susan. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
All
Dr.
right.
Sussman.
Thank you. So, guys, what we'll do, we'll start the podcast proper. And last week, which was a very controversial episode, very fiery, but it was an awesome podcast. And we had a lot of input from one or two guilters, and we value their questions and we value their input. The only thing that we say is please be civil and, fire away. And all questions are valuable. Guys, do we all agree with that? Or doesn't matter if you're a guilter or not, we welcome everybody's input and opinion.
Anybody who's civil.
Yeah. Please be civil, and you can stay on as long as you want. Well,
I will
guys,
behave.
Thank you, Obi-Wan. Thank you, Obi-Wan.
Hi, Obi.
Hello, guys
Hey,
and ladies.
welcome. So with our podcast, last week's podcast, we only did one slide, and that was slide 161. So if we start with 161, only spend 30 seconds on this. And essentially, this was the Toyota RAV4, which allegedly belonged to the victim, in this case, Teresa Halbach. And the Toyota RAV4 was obviously photographed and examined. And here we can see some photographs in the state crime lab. And yes, there is a lot of controversy, as we know and as we've discussed, in terms of the color and other things that Millbilly noted on one of the door handles that happens to be missing. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
Well, another thing I'd like to point out is that even if you look at the report from Green Bay,
Yes.
the color's green.
Correct. Now, yes. Now we're not gonna start another color war here because we're never advanced. But yes, Millbilly is absolutely 100% correct. the initial reports all mention a dark green Toyota RAV4. And as we know, Pam of God found a blue Toyota RAV4 at the Avery Salvage Yard. And later, it was reported as being blue. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
Well, the second person to state the color changing, besides Pam of God, is Bobby
Yes.
Dassey.
Yeah, which is
And he also
very
changes the make of the car. He claims it was a bluish green Honda CRV.
Honda. Yes, correct. Well, we all understand, guys. I mean, we've read the trial testimonies. Bobby Dassey really got a very good look at both Teresa and her vehicle. And it's interesting, Millbilly, how he seems to give a very detailed description of both
Oh,
Teresa,
especially
what
her.
she's wearing.
He
Yeah.
claims to
We have a
only been watching
question.
her for a few
Yes.
seconds, but he can describe exactly what she's wearing.
Correct. And
On
very
our
accurately too.
chat,
Yes, Sammy.
Glenn is asking, I think the blood in the RAV is Karen's blood. What do you guys think? Why is there no hair found in the RAV to match the blood?
Well, Millbilly, would you like to answer that question?
That's a very good question. My question is, if that is blood, why do they choose to leave the panels in the car? If it's biological evidence on those panels, why not take them out, seal them, and have them preserved? No, they just leave them in the car, let them sit there.
Yeah, because one must understand that investigators went back into the RAV many, many months down the track, and also found that both Strang and Buting did get to see the RAV4. And this was, I believe, in 2006. So we know that the RAV4 was preserved for that length of time. Now, Sammy, if I could just ask, what was the question again about the blood in the back of the RAV?
Well, he said, I think the blood in the RAV is Karen's blood. What do you guys think?
Right. Well, Karen Halbach is the mother, of course. Well, let's put it this way, right? And we've covered this before. We have a big problem, and that is we don't have easy access to the genetic profile of Teresa Halbach, right? She obviously didn't leave DNA somewhere that we can easily do a genomic typing. However, as we've discussed before, Tom Fassbender went to one of the hospitals and found out that Teresa had undergone a pap smear test. Now, what is interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in CASO, it was Ryan Hilliges who told Fassbender that Teresa had gone to the, I think, obstetrics and gynecology department to do a pap smear. So that information came from Ryan, and I read that in CASO. Bibi, do you have a comment?
They also collected 3 pap smears, and I have found paper that says that there is paperwork on those 3.
Right. Okay. Because
But
I think
it was just a list, though.
yes. In one of the reports, they list a series of slides. So when a pap smear
And
is done,
paperwork for each one. It says the
correct.
3 slides and 3
Yes.
sets of paperwork.
Yes. So thank you, BB. So Millbilly, do you have a comment?
Well, I always find it strange that when I found out that Teresa Halbach regularly donated plasma,
Yes.
why is the dispatcher asking her, do you know her blood type?
Yeah, that's a bit unusual. All her blood type and other bits and pieces of information would have been recorded at the blood bank or wherever she donated her blood. But it depends on whether the dispatcher knew that information or not. But just to answer the question, and an excellent question, so we need a reference sample. So there was a gentleman's agreement between the state and the prosecution in which no one was going to dispute that the pap smear belonged to Teresa Halbach. So everyone was in agreement. So Culhane did a genetic DNA profile of the pap smear. So Culhane collected blood in the RAV4. She also collected saliva from the cherry Pepsi Cola can in the RAV4. Both DNA profiles, that is the blood in the back of the RAV, the saliva in the cherry Pepsi can, was 100% matched to the pap smear. Now, they also took a buccal swab of Karen Halbach, and no mention was made that it was similar or identical to the pap smear, to the blood, to the saliva. So it's very, very unlikely that the blood in the RAV4 had belonged to anyone else but the victim. And I say the victim, keeping in mind if the pap smear, right, Bibi, if the pap smear did indeed belong to Teresa Halbach. And just to
We have a
finish off,
question for you, Dr. Silkman.
I
I
think
love a
it's all
question.
faked.
Well, Bibi, you could
I think
still
it's
be
all
correct.
faked.
You still could be correct, but we have to go with what we've got at the
Right.
moment. And so that's
Right.
why if the pap smear belonged to Teresa Halbach, and really, let's think about it, guys, it should be something that should be easily checked. There's got to be a record. And also, just to finish the answer, yes, there was hair found in the RAV. Was it tested? No, the hair wasn't tested. We don't know. We
Ooh,
don't know the result. Sammy.
okay. This question is for you, Dr. Silkman. Myard is asking, since it is hard to rehydrate blood and KZ is claiming sink blood, in your opinion, what theory do you lead towards on how Stephen Avery's blood got in the RAV4?
Right. Well, here's the way I think about it. And I'm thinking about this, and please, panel, interject as well. You've got to be very careful. If you're a planter, you have to think of what's going to happen in the future. So if you're going to plant blood in the RAV4, if I was the planter, I would make sure I knew 100% that the blood had indeed belonged to Stephen Avery. You can't use a random blood. You can't use random blood because, for example, you didn't really know that Culhane was going to do all the swabbing. So one can imagine if the FBI all of a sudden took jurisdiction and said, right, this is a missing person case. We're taking over the evidence. We're taking over the RAV. We're going to do all the swabbing ourselves, right? So if you're a planter and you use random blood, just to put blood there to say, oh, look, we found some blood. It's not really a good idea. Now, yes, blood was taken from Stephen Avery's sink, his bathroom floor, and also there was blood on the door frame as well. And it was taken on the 5th, I believe. Yeah, there was Remica and a few other investigators. Now, let's think about it. Blood was taken from Stephen Avery's trailer on the 5th. The RAV4 was found on the 5th. The very first time blood was mentioned in the RAV was on the 6th, right? The day after. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
Well, this confirms Stephen Avery's statement. He claims he woke up Thursday morning
Yes.
and the blood was gone.
Yes.
Remiker and Link showed up at his house around 10:30. They searched his whole
Yes.
house. They don't see
Yes.
no blood. So it was cleaned up.
Well,
I'd like to say one thing.
yes. Go ahead.
It's not hard to rehydrate blood. Blood rehydrates very easily.
You can rehydrate blood. I found an article on the net, a scientific article in which you can easily rehydrate blood.
There's a little
You got
film too somewhere.
yeah.
Somebody did it on YouTube.
Yes, they
Um,
did.
and it
You can.
rehydrates. I've even done it myself, and it rehydrates really easy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But the question here, guys, there's no hassles. You could obtain blood from anywhere anyone you want to. But here's the problem. If you take the blood, if someone took the blood from Stephen Avery's trailer, there's one problem. You're not 100% sure that it actually came from Stephen, right? So if you're going to plant blood in the RAV to frame him, you've got to be 100% sure it's from Stephen. Now, what is interesting, now don't shoot me down, guys. What is interesting is that when Kathleen Zellner interviewed Stephen and said, look, where did this blood come from? He said that he had opened up his cut again, something to do with his sister's trailer, and he bled quite profusely. But he mentioned one thing. He said that Bobby Dassey knew and saw that he was bleeding. So Bobby Dassey actually knew that he was bleeding. And when he went to Menards with his brother, he quickly went, he went to his Grand Dam, bled in the Grand Dam, and then he went to his trailer and he got, I think, a piece of duct tape to put around his finger. But he stated that when he was over his sister's house, Bobby had seen that he actually had bled. Obi-Wan, have you got a comment?
Yeah, I think the question is it's not really how the blood got there, but when the blood got there. Because we all know that somehow police or the Wisconsin State Crime Lab planted the blood. It's just when did they plant the blood? When did the blood actually get into the vehicle?
En route to the crime lab.
Agree.
Yep. Linda, do you have a comment?
Well, I think, like Obi just said, it isn't really, we all know blood got there. I think personally it came from his Grand Am, but that's my thoughts, because there was a lot of blood there.
Oh, that easily could have happened because they did interview him in Crivets, and who knows what them cops are doing. And why did they wait so long to remove the car from the property?
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, but it's when it got there, and
correct.
Like we said, I think en route.
Yes.
Okay.
That is Sammy.
We have a comment in here. Stephen Avery guilty, Brendan Dassey innocent. He says, so if you're going with the blood planted theory, it's just another level of implausibility. Stephen was talking about the police planting evidence before they even knew Teresa was dead. Well, guess what? He was just stating that they're setting me up again. They're setting me up again. And it did happen to him. He did it 18 years for something he didn't do. So yes, he was speaking to that.
Yes. Well, the thing is, look, guys, it's actually, and thank you very much for that question. Look, it's very simple. It is extremely simple. If the blood belongs to Stephen, there's only two options here, guys. Either Stephen was in the Toyota RAV4, doesn't necessarily mean he had killed Teresa Halbach. I believe that Stephen Avery could have easily come up with an excuse as to why his blood was in the RAV4. He could have come up with an excuse, but he never did. Millbilly.
When Wiegert and Fassbender start giving him all these details about stuff, he says, well, I might have touched their door.
Yes.
That's all thing you can explain.
Yes, he never shirked the issue. Now, and in actual fact, in our next slide, we're going to be talking about the blood in the RAV. Now, look, I'll openly admit it's a very difficult situation. His blood allegedly is in the RAV4. So when the blood was observed one day after in the lab. It was not observed. No one had observed any blood at the Avery salvage yard. So the blood was noted in the Toyota RAV4 in the lab. I think it was the photographer. The photographer was the one that found the driver's side door open. When the RAV4 was observed at the Avery salvage yard, all the doors were locked. That means that someone had unlocked the driver's side door. Well, the majority of the blood droplets that you find from Stephen are in the driver's side compartment, right? Now, yes, I agree. It doesn't look good for Stephen to have his blood in the Toyota RAV4. No dispute. However, if you're going to plant, and please don't be naive to think that no one is capable of nefarious activity to plant evidence against someone, right? There's the famous case of the lab technician, Kofod, who did exactly that, planted blood in a vehicle to frame two cousins for a murder. And guess what? He then got found out that this same laboratory technician who had planted blood had done it in other cases as well. And as a consequence of him framing others, he got put in prison. So I think it's rather naive to think that, hey, someone couldn't possibly plant the blood. Susan, do you have a comment?
Yes, I think it's very odd and suspicious that they did not process the RAV on the scene where it was. And it stayed there all day until into the night, and no one touched it. They're looking for a missing woman, and they don't go near it. There's something wrong there.
Yeah, not till the early evening. They then decide to take the RAV4 away. Now, what I cannot explain is why not process the vehicle there in situ? If you're concerned about the rain, about the weather didn't come in till much later in the evening, right? I mean, they've got forecasters. They can easily check when rain is about to hit. So why not process the vehicle there in situ? Bring in the crime lab, do your swabs, do your photography, open up a door or break open a window that doesn't have any fingerprints on it. Get into the vehicle, process the inside of the vehicle, do your blood swabs. If you see blood, if you see any signs of foul play, take your swabs, do it all in situ, do your photography, bring a video. No one is going to dispute that because it's all in situ. Susan, do you have a comment?
I'm also very surprised that Strang and Buting didn't bring any of this up, and they did not bring up the extra time that it took to transport the RAV to the lab. That bothers me.
Yes. And also, Linda, do you have a comment?
Just to further on why they didn't process it there. I mean, really, if they were worried about the weather, it rained on it anyway. You can see the RAV dry and you can see it full of water. So I just think that is very suspicious in its own.
Yes, it is. It's rather bizarre that that they use the excuse, well, we had to put tarps on it because it was going to rain. Well, lo and behold, when they take the tarps off, it did rain and the car got wet on the outside, which is not real smart. So to answer the question, yes, and to answer the question, I think you're naive if you believe that everyone's 100% innocent and incapable of framing somebody else. If you look at the history, that happens all the time. And I just quoted one example. There have been many other laboratory techs who've been put in prison for tampering with evidence. Bibi, do you have a comment?
And we also know what a bang-up job Sherry Cohen did.
Correct.
And it's not like there's never been an instance where a police officer has planted evidence ever.
Yeah. I mean, look, there is history there. And I believe that's why I said at the beginning, if you're going to frame Stephen, you want to plant his blood in that Toyota RAV4. So we know that there is one source of blood, the 1996 blood vial. Yes, it's got EDTA in it. I understand that. and we can argue that if you wish, but law enforcement did have access to that blood. And because it's got EDTA in it, you never know when that blood was taken out, right? Or who had handled that blood tube in the past. And we know that that was a game changer. Sammy, do you have a question?
Yeah, Stephen Avery guilty, Brenda Dassey innocent. We see contaminated samples in labs a lot, and they are being extremely careful there. So, yeah, it seems to be ongoing conversation this person would like to have about this. And I've tried to express to this person, you've already put that out in one of your videos about the risk that there is to planting evidence. But am
Yes.
I wrong in saying she was the one that was collecting these swabs too?
No, Cherie Cohen was the one that collected all the swabs. Cherie Cohen took on the role as the lead investigator, per se, from the crime lab. She nominated to collect all the swabs. Now, remember, she had a long history with Stephen Avery, as we've gone over this before. So she took the swabs from the Toyota RAV4. She also took the swabs from Stephen's Toyota, from his Pontiac Grand Dam. So she handled all the swabs. She knew exactly where the swabs had come from, which vehicle they had come from. Furthermore, she had done all the PCRs. So she knew which swabs, A, contained blood, B, contained the full genomic DNA profile belonging to Stephen Avery. Now, the question is, where are the in situ photographs of her collecting the swabs in both vehicles? There isn't any. Furthermore, Cherie Cohen stated that she put all the swabs on a bench to air dry. And then she placed them in packets. So therefore, you're relying on her honesty that she put the swabs in the correct containers labeled correctly. The other point is Cherie Cohen kept the swabs in her personal cupboard in the lab for approximately 4 months, and then she returned them to storage. I've never heard of that before. And she admitted this in the trial. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Yes, Steve Avery is guilty, Brenda Dassey's innocent. You are more than welcome to join our Foul Play Discord server and come after the video and talk with us, you know?
Of course.
As long
Of
as you're
course.
civil, everything's cool.
Of course. And now look, we're not going to know all the answers. And we're discussing here. We're not presenting conspiracy theories because it's pretty obvious here. Either Stephen Avery had placed his blood in the Toyota RAV4 or somebody else did. That's it. It's as simple as that. Now, Stephen Avery, he's got a long history with the MTSO. He knows they set him up the first time round. That's why he had the civil lawsuit with him. Okay? So he already was semi-paranoid when all of a sudden the attention was being drawn to him.
Absolutely,
Right?
but with good reason, not just some dude off the street going, "Oh, these schmucks are just trying to set me up." No, he already knew from experience
Correct.
that this
Yes,
could go in this direction.
correct. He already was primed, right? And as soon as the focus started, the spotlight was placed on Stephen, he said it very, very early on, right? And as Millbilly had put up the video of Stephen Avery's interrogation on November the 9th, the whole conversation changed the moment Stephen Avery said, well, a cop planted the car and the blood was planted, right? The entire conversation got very nasty, very personal, and they attacked him from all sides the moment he had mentioned planting. So, what we're trying to do here on the podcast is ask the question, was planting possible? In other words, did the planter, and we don't know who it is, did they have access to Stephen Avery's blood? Yes, they did. 2, did they have access, potential access to the Toyota RAV4? Yes, they did. Was there an opportunity to place blood in the Toyota RAV4 before it got to the crime lab? Yes, there was. And 4th point, did anyone observe any blood in the Toyota RAV4 at the Avery salvage yard? No, they didn't, including investigators with torches, including Pam God, who was with 9 years experience as a private investigator. She observed the front of the RAV4 and did not observe any blood anywhere. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
What do you think about it? When you find a car, where's the first place you're going to look when you're going to find a car? You're going to look in the car to see if you can see there's keys in it,
Correct.
right? Where would the keys be?
Correct.
In the ignition. Where do you see the
Correct.
blood? Now, cops state that he was able to look in there and look on the scan disc and see Teresa's name written on it.
Teresa's name.
Now, if you
Correct.
can see that little detail, you definitely see blood.
Correct. And don't forget, the investigators even said that the black CD case on the passenger seat, half of it was covered in a blood smear. And no one had noted any blood anywhere. And blood is pretty easy to look for because you've got a grey panel, you've got red on it, you can easily spot it. No one had seen any blood. Linda, do you have a comment?
I'd like to point out that Bobby or Mark or Mike Halbach, whoever was speaking, I can't remember which one it was, but he also
Yes.
said they found the car and did not see anything
play.
that would point to the fact that she was injured in any way. So
Yes.
Yep. And that
Yes.
statement's made before they remove the car from the property
Yes.
because it's still
Yes.
light up when they're talking to him, and that's on the 5th.
Yes. So, I mean, we don't know who the planter is, but there's no doubt someone could have had access to Stephen Avery's blood, the Toyota RAV4, and the opportunity to place it within the vehicle. Now, we're not making an outrageous claim. Was it possible? Yes, it was. Did it happen? We don't know. Okay, we're just presenting it as a possibility, right? Bibi, do you have a comment?
Yes, I'd also like to say on our Foul Play Discord server, there's plenty of research, so you're
Yes.
more than welcome to come, you know?
Yes. Yes.
You could talk to us on a phone line and speak with us instead of having to type. You're more than welcome there. As
And
long
if
as
you
you're
have
civil.
questions on
Sam.
where to find information, we have plenty of that too.
Yes. Now, I've done a series of presentations about planting, the possibility of planting, how you could potentially fool the FBI as well. So I'm not saying I'm 100% correct, but I gave a possible scenario in which planting could be done. Has planting been done before using blood? Oh, yes, it has, right? And I even show a video presentation of the guy, Kofod, who was a senior laboratory tech who planted blood in a vehicle. And he was the one that did the genomic DNA profile that fingered these two cousins as being involved in a crime, which they never did. So, does planting take place? Yes, it does. Sam.
Okay. Stephen Avery guilty, Brandon Dassey innocent. He says, I don't believe Stephen's blood was planted. I also don't think Brandon should be in prison. I question if he saw anything at all or was even used by Stephen for an alibi.
He definitely was used as an alibi.
Mhm.
These jail calls, Stephen mentions multiple times.
Thank you,
But-
Milby.
They were standing by the fire. The whole
Yes.
reason law enforcement went after Brendan is because Marie didn't cooperate and Jody didn't cooperate. So they took his one alibi and turned him into a suspect.
Yes.
He says
Yes.
also Brandon may have seen something, but it's clear to me if he did, he didn't see much.
No, he
Right.
didn't.
And
Nothing happened.
Well,
Nothing happened.
and
Nothing happened.
the
BB.
Steve Avery guy, he should look at Dr. Silkman's presentation about Kiss the Girl.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No question. I mean, we've looked at Brendan
It's on
Dassey
our
from.
Foul Play channel.
Yeah, we've looked at. Thank you, BB. We've looked at Brendan Dassey from multiple angles, and we've looked at the case very, very closely.
Like
Forensically,
I
yes,
used to think that he was involved or may have seen or heard something too. I do not think that at all anymore. He was singled out for one reason, and he it's tragic what they did to this kid.
Yes, and also I did the video presentation that displayed his vulnerabilities in actually believing what the story of the bus driver, and in actual fact, that's one of the slides that we will be doing. Yeah, look, you can forensically you cannot link Brendan to either the trailer, the garage, or to Teresa Halbach. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about if these labs can actually get it wrong. And there was like a consensus between, I want to say 2000 and 2010. And there were several labs that were under scrutiny because of
Yes.
shoddy work and junk science and misinterpretation of the evidence. And just to name a few, there were some in Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, Colorado Springs, Dallas, Detroit, Erie, PA, New York, Houston, Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, San Antonio. I mean, these are just a few, but I mean,
Yes.
this is all over the place. And these places, they literally had to go back and reanalyze
Examine.
everything, and people were exonerated in all these cases. There was over
Yes.
like 500 different cases that were looked at
Yeah.
because of this.
Yep. And yep. And Obi-Wan, that's an excellent point. And that's exactly why I believe Kathleen Zona is continuously being stonewalled. Because if she presents evidence that dismantles the state's case, we have a huge problem. Because all the prisoners that are in prison who've had forensics done by the Wisconsin State Crime Lab are going to put their hands up and say, I want a new trial, I want a new reinvestigation, right? And Culhane admitted, well, you look at Culhane's record, she's got the highest contamination record in the place, but furthermore, she admitted that she was under severe pressure because she had to handle hundreds and hundreds of samples and do the analysis rapidly. Can you make mistakes? Yes, you can. But we have one big problem. Cherie Culhane has a long history with Stephen Avery. We already know she's the one that put him in prison the first time with the dodgy hair evidence. She's the one that got him exonerated. All right? And now her forensic analysis put him back in prison. So,
if I may,
Obi-Wan. Yes.
They say police often share their suspicion regarding suspects with lab workers before forensic examinations are performed. This has been shown to prejudice the lab personnel in areas diverse as fingerprinting examinations, DNA testing, chemical testing. Some crime lab examiners feel that they are part of the prosecution's team, helping police and prosecutors convict suspects regardless of the results for forensic testing. In such cases, forensic experts and other lab personnel may lie about the test results or be misleading about the
Yes.
reliability of their methods to cover up test outcomes when they are beneficial
Yes.
for the state.
Yeah. Yeah. So in essence, you've got inherent bias. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
I think we should move on to slide 162.
No, we will. We will.
second that.
Thank you.
Christy? Okay. Okay. So guys, oh no, this one's even better. So we have, let's have a look at slide 162. And so what we've got here is pictures of the Toyota RAV4 allegedly belonging to the victim. And we can see the inside of the Toyota RAV4. And what we find is on the lower left-hand side, we've got the door that's been opened. That's the rear door. And we can see droplets of blood sprayed all over the door. If we have a look at the top right-hand corner, we can see that there are some reddish stains on the plastic part of the where the mat area is. And we've also got a large stain on one of the panels on the right-hand side of the vehicle. Now, guys, I'm going to throw it to the panel. I'm going to ask each panel member one simple question. All right, tell me what happened to the victim. BB, what happened to the victim? You've got this evidence in front of you. What happened to the victim?
Well, for me, that's a hard one because I don't think the victim's the victim.
Okay.
But, and I think that the splatters on the back of the door can be made by an old-fashioned syringe. And if you do a frisbee movement with your hand and press the plunger, that it will splatter on the back door like that.
Okay. Okay. So potentially that blood pattern that you see could be planted.
Yeah. I believe it's all planted. There's less than two tubes of blood. It's probably only one tube of blood that's ran down the passenger side of the back end. So as opposed to the pools of blood that we were told were in there.
Yeah. So can you make any comment on whether somebody had died?
Definitely there's not enough blood to say somebody died.
All right. But is there evidence that somebody was in the back of that RAV?
Maybe, maybe not.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Interesting.
You could plant that there as well.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you, BB. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
The thing that I struggle with this is I work at in an emergency department. And when a victim has come in and they're bleeding, for starters, if they're deceased, all the blood pulls down because of gravity, so everything drops. You're telling me that someone who's got gunshot wounds, a slit throat, who's got major damage to the head, which is where some of the arteries are, which just constantly bleed, that to me, when we go and clean up afterwards, we find things like places of blood in places you wouldn't even think that the blood has seeped through, to the point that we have to destroy the mattresses. There is absolutely no way someone bleeding that much was laying in the back of that car. There would be way more evidence. There would be absolutely way more blood. It wouldn't be just a splatter. You would find it on bolts. You would find blood soaked. You can't get rid of that. And the smell when it starts to dry, it's pungent. You can smell blood like you wouldn't believe. So to me, there is absolutely no way a dead body that was bleeding laid in that back of that car, in that RAV4.
And you've obviously got a lot of experience on seeing bleeding victims, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I've seen gunshots, stab wounds. I've seen people get hit by cars. I've seen a lot of nasty stuff. And like I was saying, like what I was just explaining, the blood itself, when you are deceased, when it still comes out, it still leaves like a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to clean it up, you will find that has gone in places you wouldn't even think it would be. It's insane.
Yeah.
We've had to destroy beds, trolleys, because it's just soaked through and destroyed
Right.
it. You just can't clean it.
All right. So can you make any comments about what's happened to the victim?
Oh, absolutely not. There's no,
Okay.
to me, looking at RAV4, to me, you think, for the seats are down, and you could think, oh, someone had boxes there, someone spilt something. To me, there's no evidence that a body was ever even put there.
Well, very, very interesting. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got the insight, you've got the experience. Christy, what can you tell us about the back of the RAV?
That it just didn't go down the way Ken Kratz said it did. That, like Kelly said, it's impossible. The amount of blood, the blood is missing. There's just,
Yep,
it looks faked,
yep.
like it was done intentionally to make to fit their narrative, to fit their story.
Right. So Ken Kratz in court said there were pools of blood. Do you know any pools of blood?
I don't see any. I mean, maybe he had on special glasses that the rest of us don't have. I mean, I don't know. I don't see
All right.
pools of blood. I mean, pools. I see some specks. I see a couple splatters, not pools.
Right. Okay. So can you tell me anything about how the victim allegedly died by looking at that RAV?
Not the way Ken Kratz said she did.
Okay. All right.
That's
Thank you,
really,
Christy.
there's not enough there to tell you anything. It just definitely didn't go down the way they say it did.
Okay. Thank you, Christy. Millbilly, what are your thoughts?
Well, looking at what the rear panel, the right side panel, it doesn't make sense. Like, why is there no blood on the carpet?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the carpet untucked?
Yep.
Why is there a DNA profile on the rear door that they seem no importance to find out who it belongs to?
Yep. Very good point. We
Uh,
discussed that last week. Yep.
it appears that if that is her blood, like I think that those panels are from her car,
Yes.
but that's not her car.
Okay. That's a possibility. So from that blood distribution pattern, can you tell me anything what happened to the victim?
No. And the fact that the state didn't try to do that either.
Yep.
They didn't explain the blood on the back of the door. They explained her being placed in the back of it. That's how the blood got on the panel. But the back door,
Yes.
they never explained that.
Right. Okay. Okay. So on that back door, the panel that's open, you've got droplets with blood dripping straight down,
Hmm.
not at an angle, but dripping straight down.
Cast pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you, Millbilly. Susan, do you have any comments?
In the bottom right photo, it's
Yes.
evident to me that that carpet has been laid back. You can see where the bend is
Yes.
in it. It's been laid back, but there's no photos with it laid back. So I
Right.
think probably because there's no blood under there. And you would think that if she were laying there bleeding, it at least some would have seeped under there. And,
Yeah.
no blood on the carpet makes no sense.
I have a question here. They're asking
Sammy.
if KK said pools of blood in the trial or pre-trial.
Press
That's
conference.
yeah. Well, I have
That's
to
what I
double check.
thought it was.
Yep, I have to double check that. Yes, but I believe he said it in one of the trials as well. I mean, I'm not in front of my computer at the moment, but that could be easily checked. But he definitely mentioned pools of blood, and quite clearly, there's not. But you'd be lucky to have several mils of blood here. Now, remember, the state said that Teresa was shot 10 or 11 times, including twice in the head. She was stabbed in the stomach and had her throat cut. And this is the amount of blood we got here. So yeah, Susan. Yeah, it's thank you, Sammy. Susan, do you have any more comments?
I think I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. Obi-Wan, what can you tell us about the blood patterns in the back of the RAV?
I think the cast off pattern is completely wrong. It would have went from like sideways. These patterns that you see are straight down, and as I believe Kelly had said that the pattern or the blood pattern gravity would pull blood downward, so it pretty much dropped from the top straight down. That means you would have had to been high above the cargo door for it to have dripped down, and then gravity would have taken its toll, But the inside of the vehicle, you do see blood on the rug, but you see surface blood. You don't see blood like you would suspect as like pools of blood. If there was a dead body with somebody that just had brutally gotten beaten back there and tossed in the back, you would expect to find somebody actively bleeding out and dripping all over that, which that's not what you see. You see surface on the very top layer of the rug.
Yes.
And if there was a body that had thrown back there, I could see it being possible, but the body would have had to have been deceased for a period of time. I mean, like rigor mortis would already had to set in. The blood would have already had to have been started to coagulate in the body.
Yes.
And that's the only thing I can pretty much see as in terms of the blood that's back there. You know what I mean? I just don't see how this... It would have been some time would have had to have passed before this body was put back there.
Right. Okay. Linda, thank you, Obi-Wan. Linda, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Obi. I think that if there was a body back there, that it would have been wrapped up in a tarp or something of some sorts, and maybe the hair was sticking out, just a little bit, enough to get that on there. The blood splatter on the door, I cannot explain. It doesn't fit anything that I've ever seen. Looking at other things, it doesn't make any sense. There's not enough for them to do it the way they say it happened. There's absolutely no way that I could tell that a woman was dead and murdered in that car.
Right. Okay. So we have, I'm basically of the same thing. I can't tell what's happened back there. And I certainly don't see pools of blood. I do see some blood. I know that the pattern on that back door panel, the blood has been sprayed directly on it, and the blood has dripped down immediately because you can see it as straight lines. Kathleen Zellner's experts tried to reproduce that by flinging a body into the vehicle, and they found that none of the every time they flung a body with blood bleeding from the head, it never produced that pattern. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
I just thought that it was kind of odd that you only see one pattern of this cast off, and it's going downward. You don't see it in different different directions, or like it's veering off like sideways or anything like that. It's all consistent with coming straight down, and that just screams like somebody obviously purposely done this.
BB, thank you, Obi-Wan. BB.
I just like to say that why would he put the body from the garage into the back of the car to take it less than 10 feet to the other side of the garage to burn it?
Correct.
It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. There was no reason for that to be done.
I remember they state that they used the little wrecker to transport it from the garage to the burn pit, but there's no DNA of hers anywhere in that garage.
Yeah, or blood. Correct. Also, there was no blood from the trailer to the garage, because obviously had to carry her body from the trailer to the garage. It's completely weird. Yeah, so from that, my observation is it's very difficult to tell exactly what had happened to a victim. There's certainly no pools of blood. Ken Kratz did mention pools of blood. And remember, the volume of blood that allegedly belongs to Stephen, there were 6 droplets. And the total volume will be between around about 300 to 600 microliters. That's an extremely small volume. Look, less than half a mil, maybe. Now, if we have a look at slide 163, now, guys, we've already broken a record. We've actually done more slides than last week.
Cooking with fire now.
Yeah, yes. Now, Nick Stolke, he's the blood stain pattern expert. Now, this is looking at slide 163. And he was asked to give a comment about what gave the stain pattern on the panel on the right-hand side. And his analysis was, well, it's a contact stain from someone bleeding, so it's like bleeding from their hair. Well, we know that according to the state, Teresa Halbach was shot at least twice in the skull, one in the back of the skull and one on the left temple. So I would imagine that someone would be profusely bleeding. Now, if they're placed in the back of the RAV and they've obviously got blood in their hair, would you expect to find more blood than what we see here? Guys, tell me, would you expect to see more blood if someone had just been shot in the skull twice? Bibi.
By all means, there's just not enough blood. And when you get a head wounds bleed, really.
Yes.
Yes, it would be dripping,
Yes.
pooling, dripping. Yes.
Yes. Now, Kelly, you've obviously seen head wounds before. Typically, do they produce a lot of blood?
So what was that?
You've seen head wounds before. Would they typically produce a lot of blood?
Oh my God, the head's actually one of the worst. When a head injury comes in, it could be literally just like a scratch. It hasn't even penetrated through to the skull, but
yes,
all the tiny little vessels in the skull and the face, it just doesn't stop. And then we'll take away the wrapping or whatever they've got on their head, the towel, and you see a tiny little cut, and what you're holding, what looks like a massacre. You think that there is a gunshot in the head because it's so much blood, and it could come from the tiniest little cut. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Head wounds are one of the most craziest bleeding parts of the body. It's insane.
Yeah. So in essence, if you've got 2 bullet holes in your skull, you're going to bleed profusely, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And more so in the temple, because, you've got the artery going, you've got everything pumping still, because it takes a few seconds for the heart to actually stop. So the body, you might get shot in the head, but your body is still reacting and it's still pumping. And then as you're shot in the head, your heart's still pounding and it's literally pumping out the blood. It's insane.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so when Brendan Dassey was questioned, I think he was asked whether there was blood on their clothing, right? On their clothing. And I believe he said, no, Stephen didn't have any blood. And talking about blood, Brendan Dassey gave 7 different versions of how Stephen Avery had cut his finger. 7. So as a witness, he clearly is very unreliable. And if you follow his testimony very carefully, he clearly had no idea what he was talking about because he never saw any crime taking place. He had guessed everything. So it's pretty obvious that if you're going to shoot someone twice in the skull, cut their throat, stab them in the stomach, you're going to have blood everywhere, right? And this is remarkable because in court, during the trial, Strang and Buting said, where's the blood? And can you believe that Fassbender, I think also Wiegert said, oh, you necessarily didn't expect much blood on the mattress because maybe the cut to the throat, stabbing to the stomach, didn't penetrate enough and nothing bled. Kelly, would you like to comment on that? If you slit someone's throat or stab them in the stomach, would you expect any blood?
Oh my God, absolutely. God, you can bleed over a paper cut for God's sake, whether it's penetrated enough or not. You pierce that layer of skin, you're getting to
Yes.
all the little vessels in your body, you are going to bleed. It's not, oh my God, that's the most stupidest comment I've ever heard.
But the amazing thing is, Fassbender said it with a straight face. Right? He said it with a straight face. So miraculously, Linda, sorry, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say that they said, Wiegert said, well, they had 5 days to clean it up. So I find that very funny too.
Yeah.
I don't care if they had 5 months.
Correct.
I agree.
To clean it up. I don't care if they had 5 years to clean it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see, the thing is that they showed photographs of the garage, right? And we already know, we don't even know where the shooting scenario took place, because I believe Brendan Dassey initially said, oh, she was shot outside and then somehow got transposed to being shot inside the garage. And Milbilly, is that correct?
Yeah, it's funny though, because they claim that they had 5 days to clean up. Well, they had 5 months
Yeah.
to make it stick.
Correct. And don't forget, they also had over a year to prepare for the trial. So, you know, we've seen high-speed photography of skulls being shot, and the microspray that you get, the cast-off blood that you get, there's no way you're going to be able to see it and B, able to clean it up, especially in Stephen Avery's garage. That was a mess. There would have been blood absolutely everywhere. There's no blood. There's no evidence of any blood, which is ridiculous. But guys, if we continue with slide 163, this is what BB was talking about. Now, this is bizarre. Now, think about this scenario. They had the fire with the sole intention of burning Teresa Halbach. According to Brendan Dassey, they sat in Stephen's lounge and they thought, what were they going to do to the body? They had agreed that they were going to burn it. So if that's the case, why would they load Teresa Halbach from the garage into the RAV, take her body out of the RAV, put her on the, I think it was some type of device with wheels, put her on there and wheel her to the fire pit? Can anybody tell me why Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey would put Teresa Halbach in the back of her own RAV if they've got a raging fire going with the intention of burning Teresa Halbach? Can anybody justify why they would use the RAV4 as a temporary resting place for a deceased Teresa Halbach? Anybody?
Nobody would do that.
Anybody? Has the guilter got a suggestion? Was it just
I
for
have
fun?
not. I have not seen him on here for
What?
some time. Yeah.
What? I
Yeah.
mean,
I gave him every opportunity to make
yes,
comments and ask questions, and
yes.
at some point he did mention he would like to listen.
Okay, okay,
So he is
okay.
possibly sitting out there listening. But
Yes,
just so you know, if that was me, I would, if I'm going to do you in, I'm damn sure not putting you in your own vehicle and going to
yeah.
drive you to my backyard.
And not to mention,
Correct.
you have the means to destroy a car, but you don't.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now remember, Stephen Avery, he knows about DNA, right? Because that's what exonerated him, right? So he knows the procedure. He would have talked with his lawyers about DNA, the forensic evidence. So why on earth would he put his victim in the Toyota RAV4 and then go, oh, That's right. We're going to burn her, take her out of the vehicle. And mind you, there's no blood on their clothing, right? This is a person that's been shot twice in the skull, at least twice. And according to Brendan, shot 10 or 11 times, stabbed in the throat, stabbed in the stomach, put her in the RAV4, take her out of the RAV4, put her on that trolley device, and then wheel her down to the fire pit. Now, to me, that RAV4 is so damning
Oh yeah,
for the state.
it's
It's sort of, yeah, Millbilly.
it's the one thing that gained him entry to that property.
Correct.
It's the key to this case. It all starts
Correct.
with that RAV4.
With the RAV4. No question. Susan, do you have any comments?
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's
Yes.
just ridiculous.
Yes. I mean, you got a victim. You're not going to muck around. You're not going to do a third party, or let's just put her in the back of the RAV and decide what we want to do. Remember, his mother was on the property. His father was on the property. They visit Stephen all the time on their cart, right? The boys were next door. His two brothers were there. So he could have been discovered at any stage. And not forgetting, of course, he committed this crime in front of his allegedly committed this crime in front of his nephew, right? So the whole premise is so bizarre, right? Yet this is what the state presented, and this is what got Stephen convicted. I believe the RAV exonerates him because it makes no sense.
Why? That's why they won't let Zellner get it.
That's exactly right. Now,
It's
just
the
one.
key to this case.
Yes, the RAV is the key to the case. There's no question. There's your major crime scene right there. It's too clean. I keep on saying it's too clean. You look at where Stephen Avery has deposited his blood. It's the absence of his blood in a whole lot of locations that is very suspicious. And a YouTuber, I forgot his name, he was recently interviewed by Paul Capaldi. He did a demonstration whereby he got into a truck, right? I think you remember it. Yeah. And he showed, sorry, Linda, please comment.
I was just saying it was Andrew Whitehead.
That's the one. That's the one. And it was excellent. It was simple. It was elegant. He showed all the places he had to touch to get in and out of his truck, and in addition, open up the hood of his vehicle. There are multiple places that you touch. And remember, if the state is saying he's actively bleeding, where is all the blood on all the other places you would expect? Millbilly.
And why is there no mingling of their? It's nothing makes sense.
Yeah, and look, Linda, do you have a quick comment?
Where's the blood anywhere? I mean, where is the crime scene? It's not the trailer. It's not the garage. It's not the car. They have two blood.
Glenn on here says it's crazy. The first thing they should have tested was the mattress, and not just the surface, the material within the mattress. So yeah.
Well, believe it or not, Cherie Culhane admitted she never tested any mattress. They didn't give it to her.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all. She stated that she didn't test any of the bedding. You know why? Because there was no stains on the bed, right? Let's think about it. If there was a crime committed, there would have been blood microspray, as in use luminol, use a torch, use phenolphthalein, you'll find it. They found none. The only blood they found was Stevens.
If all of that stuff that they were claiming in that big lovely story happened on that bed, then there's no way in the world you could have cleaned that out with anything. There's no way.
No.
You would have seen it with a naked eye.
Kelly,
Better
do you
yet.
have a comment?
Oh,
I was just saying about the mattress. So at work, we've had patients come in, they've had trauma, they've bled on the mattress. We do, when they leave, we obviously give it a good disinfectant. The cleaners will come in, do double cleans, get rid of it. We've had cases where, and then you put a sheet back over it, the next patient comes on. After a few days, we do like an audit and all the mattresses get taken down, scrubbed and cleaned. We've had the cleaners go in auditing these mattresses. They've started to soak the mattress and literally the mattress starts bleeding because the blood has soaked through and the water has hydrated, like has given it hydration again. And literally the mattress are bleeding. And that we've had to destroy the mattresses because we've realized that the damage internally inside the mattress is done. It's gone. If the mattress is bleeding, it means it's holding too much, and that's obviously a health and safety hazard. It has to go. So that's what I mean. The fact that they didn't test their mattresses is unbelievable because the contents in the mattress would have held onto, the DNA, blood.
Yes.
That's the first thing they should have done.
But it goes one better than that. Right before they find the key, one of the cops is sitting on the bed in Steve's bedroom, filling out paperwork, for God's sakes.
That is correct, and that was actually stated in court. That one of the deputies, I think it was actually sitting on the bed.
Kacharsky.
Yeah. And for our listeners, you got to remember that when the investigators came in, they literally disassembled Stephen Avery's bedroom. As in, they took the wood paneling from the walls.
That's when they came
and they took the carpet.
That was in March.
Yes.
That was after Brendan told them their story.
Correct.
But on the day they find the key, he is sitting there filling out his paper. So he evidently felt confident enough to sit down on the bed.
Correct.
To do his paperwork.
Well, you got to think about it. After Brendan gives his story, they go back in there and take everything, trying to find any speck of evidence they can, and they can't.
Correct. Now, the other thing, of course, that Brendan stated was that he cut Teresa's hair off, part of her hair off, and even drew on a diagram where the hair was being placed. Now, of course, they had a vacuum cleaner, and they took the vacuum cleaner. They didn't find any Teresa's hair. They didn't find any hair within the trailer. And I think somebody made the comment of why they cut Teresa's hair. And someone made the comment, because they thought it was a trophy. Can you believe that? They thought cutting off her hair was a trophy. Millbilly.
And then also, Brendan also states, as far as the key, he states that Stephen Avery placed the key in his middle dresser drawer.
Yes.
So how did it end up behind the bookcase?
We don't. Well, we do know, but Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go back a little bit, and it was about the color of the vehicle.
Oh no!
Oh, here we go.
I shouldn't talk about it because it was kind of like a theory that me and another supporter is currently working on, me and Emma, and
yes.
But I think it might explain a little bit, and what it is it's how the family lied about the color of the RAV4, where they knew that Teresa's vehicle wasn't a dark green Toyota RAV4 and that it was a bluish green, Mystic Teal Mica color.
Yes.
So if they're lying and they know that the vehicle is not a dark green vehicle, why would they stand there and lie? And then right before they were getting ready to try Avery, Ken Kratz manipulates it and he starts slowly correcting the color of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And if he the reason why I think that is when the family lied about the color, everybody was on the lookout for a dark green Toyota
That's
RAV4.
correct.
They weren't
That's what was on
looking
the
for
posters.
they weren't looking for a bluish green
No,
Mystic
they
Till
weren't.
Mica color.
Yes,
So
that's correct.
if they were in the process of planning this vehicle and driving around in it, they could go in almost unseen. You know what I mean? Nobody would be looking for that particular vehicle. They would be looking for the wrong
A dark
color.
green. Yeah.
And that's
There's
kind of the theory I'm kind of
hundreds
working on.
of reports of her car being seen.
Right.
They all were ignored.
Right. Right, because they're looking for a dark green
Just
one.
like all the reports of the car being spotted at turnaround, they're all ignored.
Yes.
When
Yes.
when Stephen Avery tells Fassbender and Uyghur that Tammy Weber told them that the car was planted and the cops did this,
Yes.
when they go interview her, first is Greg Shetter.
Yes.
He spends it's just his report of what happened. He doesn't spend very much time talking about that incident. Finds out where she heard it from, and then the conversation shifts to, what can you tell me bad about Stephen Avery?
Yes. 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 Correct.
So
Obi-Wan.
if
Yeah.
they're driving this vehicle around unseen, well, they are seen, but I mean these reports are just going overlooked, purposely because it's the wrong colored RAV4. But
Yes.
they're literally able to plant the vehicle because nobody is actually looking for that vehicle. They're actually looking for another one. So if they really in fact did plant this vehicle, then you can assume that they had a key. And if
Yes,
that
they had to
key
have
is
had
the
a
one
key.
that wound it up in Avery's bedroom, well,
Correct.
but I don't think that key in Avery's bedroom was actually Teresa's vehicle key, her Toyota RAV4 key. I think that key was the cut key, and the one that was in Wisconsin State Crime Lab's possession that they claimed that they had cut. I think that key actually belongs to Teresa's vehicle.
Yes. Yes.
We've had
Thank you,
some more
Obi-Wan.
chatter, a lot of
Yes,
chat
Sammy.
in here about head injuries and the blood and everything. And
Yes.
at some point, Travis says there should have been high velocity blood splatter on the garage, but
Yes.
none. You don't even have a large amount. And
Yes.
so, but to the best of my knowledge, they didn't have an expert out there to even say there was or wasn't. And then, of course, we don't have the in situ photos.
Correct.
Isn't it also true that the wound to the head was also caused by a high velocity impact round,
Correct. Yes. High velocity.
which is not a 22?
No. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Let me
But
ask a question here
yes.
myself. No matter
Yes,
what
Sammy.
your head injury, we've got it from someone who works in an ER. It doesn't matter how minor it is, you're going to have blood. I mean, lots of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had a head injury when I was young. It cracked my skull. My head was cracked all the way to the skull.
Oh
And
God.
there was blood everywhere. I'm talking everywhere in the vehicle. I had a car accident, everywhere, all over me, even in my toenails. So,
Yes.
yes, I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody gets that. But I'm
Yeah.
I'm thinking though, there wasn't in situ pictures, number one. Number two, there was not an expert per se on
Correct.
blood spatter there.
Correct. Kathleen Zellner said it perfectly, where she stated that the state had 14 experts, the defense had 2. So you've got this massive asymmetry between the state and the
And
defense.
that's
Bill
just
Billy.
hilarious because you hear Walter Kelly, Stephen Avery. Well, when you get this money, you'll be able to hire some good lawyers, and then you'll be able to get experts to help you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is Stephen Avery probably needed several $1 million to defend himself properly. That's how
yeah.
expensive it got in the end.
State spent $2.5 million to convict him.
Correct.
He used
Correct, to convict him.
$240,000 to help him.
Yeah.
Nothing. Dropping him. That's nothing compared to what he had to go against. He had no chance. They
Correct.
already corrupted the whole jury pool with all the news. Just after the first 12 days,
Yes.
in the
Yes.
public eyes, he was guilty as hell. Unless
That's correct.
the select few people that actually knew him. Well, even he got his own Chuck. Chuck even says, I'm on the fence. I don't know where to go."
Yes, that's correct. And Christy can comment by her excellent work looking at the phone calls, listening into the phone calls, that both Chucky and also Earl, they had their doubts. They thought their brother was guilty. Christy, would you like to make any comments?
I'm pretty sure at one point every member of that family had their doubts other than Dolores. I'm pretty sure everybody at one point, even
Even the
Alan,
father. Even the father. Yes,
even
that's
Alan,
right.
they got him at one point. But at one, no, and maybe Brian might have been the other one who never wavered. But oh, Carla and Stacy never said anything either. But yeah,
Yes.
everybody, Earl, Chuck, the dad, Barbara, definitely, Blaine, Bobby, they had them all. They had
Candy.
Yes.
everybody questioning. Well, Candy, I think, just no matter what, Candy was going to jump on that.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why I get back to the same point with the comment made by the guilter about, oh, it's a bit outrageous to think, planting blood. That's exactly why you would plant the blood, because it causes doubt. It causes people to question. And when you have your own family members saying to Stephen, well, look at the evidence against you, Stephen, right? And Christy will back me up, because they even said that in the phone calls. Look at the evidence against you, Stephen. How did your blood get there? Right? So his own family members were telling him that. So you could imagine a jury, a judge, society in general, reading the newspapers, seeing the news reports. Stephen Avery's blood is present in the vehicle. That's damaging. Susan, do you have a comment?
I just want to make a comment. The very first interview by Channel 2, they went out to his house on the 4th. And the news lady asked him if the police had asked him to take a polygraph.
Oh, yes.
That's a bit early.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. It's your classic tunnel vision starting right from the get-go. Alinda, do you have a comment? Thank you, Susan. Linda,
I
do you
was
have a
just gonna.
comment?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was just gonna. I forgot what I was gonna say.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. That happens.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is why if you're going to set Stephen up, that's precisely what you do.
I
You
have a
place
question in here.
Thank you, Sammy.
Was Candy the confidential informant?
Well, we know
Well,
Kim Ducat. Kim Ducat.
she
Kim Ducat.
Kim Ducat
was
was the
one.
confidential informant. His cousin, Stephen's own cousin. Now, is Kim Ducat related to Sandra Morris?
Yes,
Are they
but
cousins or
not
sisters?
And Kim
not as
Ducat,
sisters. I
Kim
don't think.
Ducat calls the Two Rivers Police Department and notifies them that Stephen Avery has a smelter,
Yes,
burning stove.
that's right.
And when they relay that information over to Manitowoc, they say, "Oh, we're well aware of that already."
Correct.
That's
Yes.
the same day they find the Sikiki note, and the same day they start finding bones.
Yes.
How'd she find out about the Sicky note so soon?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Yeah. So, yeah, she was his own cousin was a confidential informant. So, Lord knows what they were informing the police about, but clearly something was going on. Thank you very much, Sammy.
Well, typically, if
Millbilly.
you're an informant,
You're
you're going to
welcome.
be taken care of in some form or fashion.
Yes.
Was her record possibly expunged?
Well, who knows? Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, you look at the Avery family. They'd done a lot of nefarious things, right? A lot of
We have no clue what kind of deals the prosecution may have set up with their witnesses for them
Yes.
to participate.
Well, if we could go to slide 164. And I'm impressed, guys. We're making incredible progress. We've done 4 slides. This is the critical one. This slide right here. And now let's think about this, right? We've got Scott Tadich. Now, Scott Tadich came into the equation because he apparently observed a large fire burning on Halloween, the evening of Halloween. Christy, do you have a comment?
On December 26th of 2005, that fire is very small and almost out.
Right.
Out of Scott's own mouth when
Yes.
Stephen calls over to Barbara's house on the day after Christmas on December 26th. If anybody wants to go look for the call, it's when he
Yes.
calls Barbara's and talks to everybody. He talks to Scott. He talks to Scott about the fire. Scott talks about how tiny the fire is, and
Yes.
life goes on. But
And
by
also forget
February
about
27th, it's
he also
huge.
talks about how he's being set up. Yep. And somebody knows something. Yep. Yep.
December 26th.
Yes. So the point here is Scott was obviously dating Stephen's sister, right? And Scott now is Stephen's brother-in-law, and Scott is a key witness for the state, stating that that fire was at least 10 feet tall as the garage. Because remember, to burn a human body, you need a huge amount of fuel and you need a huge amount of heat, direct heat, to not only to burn a body, but to cremate a body into small bone fragments. Susan, do you have a comment?
But as Buting pointed out in the trial, Scott's interview in November, he said the flames were about 3 feet high.
Correct. Yeah. So what anybody can hazard a guess as to why all of a sudden the flames went from small to a few feet to over 10 feet tall. Now remember that there was a huge propane tank and a dog kennel near the burn pit, right? So why did Scott now say in court that he saw a large fire? Anybody can provide any clues? Why? Why did he change?
Because he was told to.
He was told to, yes. Linda, do
I
you have a
believe it.
comment?
Yeah, I believe it was a lot of family pressure put on that family, and they had to, go after you. Either do this or this is going to happen to you or something. I don't know what they did, but I know there was a
Yes.
lot of pressure put on that family.
Oh yeah, for sure. Christy, do you have a comment?
I just want, for anybody that wants to know, that phone call where Scott talks about the fire is call 310.
Right. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, Millbilly, do you have a comment?
No.
Okay, Obi-Wan?
Yeah, you have several officers asking people several days in advance, or not several days in advance, but several days after they had given original statements, where they're like, now this is the time if you want to change your story around.
Yes.
Are you sure you want to stick with that story? Do you want to
Yes.
make a change? It's just you could tell that something had happened to where
Yes.
they tried to coerce them into changing their stories.
Well, isn't that what Don said? That the law enforcement were asking him to change his statements, that all of a sudden this fire that he saw at Stephen Avery's place was just bigger and bigger and bigger. I believe he made that comment to Kathleen Zellner.
Yes, he did. Yeah, Redan.
Yeah, Redan did. Josh Redan. Okay, so we have Scott Tadich, whose story changed. It went from a small fire to a huge fire. This was significant because the investigators knew that to burn a body, to cremate a body, you need a huge amount of constant heat, direct heat, in order to transform a body into bone fragments. So in essence, if you look at the cremains, It's like a human body has been cremated. This is what you find when someone has been cremated in a crematorium. So Scott Tadich stated that the flames were huge, right? Now, Kathleen Zona's experts have stated many, many times, and they've seen people burnt a lot, burnt. There's no way the fire pit was actually quite small. There's no way that you can sustain enough fuel and direct heat to convert a human body into the cremains that we see, the bones in a box. So, Linda, do you have a comment?
Yes, there was a case in Minnesota where a girl was burned on an open pit, and
Yes.
it took 8 days. It wouldn't
8
be
days.
4 hours.
Right.
And they only
Okay.
had one tooth left.
Oh, Lord. Okay. But it took 8 days in order to do it.
Yes, 8 days. It took 8 days of continual fire to burn the
Yeah.
body to nothing. There was
Yes.
nothing left.
Yes. And I'm sure that all her cremains had remained in one spot, right?
Correct. And there was
Yeah.
residue you could see.
Yes, correct. The residue and that's remarkable that you state that, because they didn't find any residue in this case. And so hence the argument was the bones were brought, the body was burnt elsewhere, and the bones were brought to the property. Millbilly.
I recently posted news footage, and they have aerial footage from the news when they're excavating the burn pit. And they
Yes.
got the backhoe, 2 guys with 2 rakes,
Right.
and that's it.
Right. Right. So if you're burning a body in a burn pit on the surface, why have you got heavy machinery digging out the burn pit to make it look even bigger?
So we have a question.
Sammy.
It's from G. Dunlop, and it says, I have no experience in the courts. Is it common that the state's witness are compensated in any way for their testimony? Not the experts, but people like Scott.
Well, we don't know what type of backroom deals were done, because I think Scott Tadich obviously must have known what his statement was going, the impact of his statement. Christy, do you have a comment?
I don't believe it's allowed.
Right. Okay.
Not that it wasn't done, but you're not.
Technically,
snitches
it's illegal.
Technically,
Well, if
but
it
at the
would be
same
allowed,
time,
if it would
people
be
are
allowed,
allowed.
wouldn't it be like what a juror gets? Nothing, you know.
Yes. Yes. Christy.
There's people that get criminals that get lesser time on their sentences.
Yeah, they get
So
compensation.
I consider that a form of compensation. If you got a 10-year sentence and you got 3 years taken off your sentence because you testified
Yes.
against Joe Blow, you know,
Yes.
that's compensation. It might not be monetary compensation, but it's not supposed to happen. Scott Tadich should not have received anything. Bobby Dassey should not have received anything. We don't know that
Right.
they didn't. They should not have.
Right. Linda, thank you, Christy. Linda, do you have a comment?
I would think that would be bribery, wouldn't it?
well,
I mean, that's kind of a way of like, here you go, here's some money for what you're saying. Thanks very much. I think that's totally illegal.
Yes, it would be. But the question is, why did Scott insert himself into the case? Why did Scott have to mention about seeing a big fire when no one else saw a big fire? And of course, we understand the significance of the big fire. And I remember that Barb used to complain to Stephen all the time when Stephen used to burn a lot of tires, that they would leave black soot on Barb's property. Well, no one noticed any black soot on Barb's property. Otherwise, I would have commented on it. And Steve admitted that he used I think it was some brush, some furniture, a seat, and some tires as accelerant.
The seat was burned a prior burn. That night he burned the brush,
Yes,
4 tires, and the cabinet.
correct.
And that
Correct.
was it.
Okay,
Yeah,
Travis made a comment on here and said plea deals have to be disclosed or it's a Brady violation.
right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And we appreciate Travis's comments, of course. Um, well, the amazing thing is this, right? Why would Scott insert himself into the case? Why would he have to mention seeing a fire in the first place, Sammy?
Okay, Kim is asking why did Bruckenheimer call Teresa Halbach at 12:29 on 10/31/05?
Oh.
Yep, I don't know that one. I don't know that one. That's anybody got an answer to that one? Nope.
Very interesting.
It is very interesting. That's a very good thing to maybe check up. Maybe we should ask Ken Kratz that one. Okay. Well, to make matters worse, right? Not only do we have Scott stating that he saw this huge big fire, 10-foot flames as tall as the garage, we now have possibly the most important witness for the state. That's Bobby. And Bobby, of course, is Stephen's nephew. Now, Bobby's testimony was very, very damaging. And we all know why. Because he allegedly saw Teresa drive onto the property. He saw Teresa take photographs. Bobby Dassey was able to describe the vehicle that she drove. I think he got the make wrong. But Bobby Dassey was able to give a very good description of what Teresa Halbach was wearing. The important thing is this: he never mentioned seeing Stephen at all, right? And his final comment was after seeing Teresa take the photographs, he saw her walking towards Stephen's trailer. He didn't say that he saw Teresa go in the trailer or that he saw Stephen. And Bobby said that he had a quick shower to go bow hunting. But when he left, he still saw Teresa's vehicle, but he didn't see Teresa. So the obvious implication was, where's Teresa? Had to have been inside the trailer. So this witness here literally threw his uncle under the bus. You couldn't get a more damaging testimony than Bobby's. Guys, do we have any comments?
We're looking good.
Oh, looking good? Okay. Now, here's the problem. Stephen said, look, I saw Teresa out of my window come onto the property. I saw her take photographs. I came out with $40 and I walked to her vehicle and she gave me a copy of the Auto Trader magazine. I paid her. I walked back to my trailer and I saw Teresa Halbach leave. But one important point that Stephen said, when I went in the trailer, I came back out to go over to my sister's place. I noticed that Bobby Dassey's vehicle was gone. The Blazer was gone. He also observed Teresa Halbach do a left-hand turn, I believe, on 147, but he never saw the Blazer. So hence, at this point here, we have a 180 degrees difference in what Bobby said and what Stephen said. But these two guys are still connected, Scott and Bobby, because Scott was an alibi for Bobby and Bobby was an alibi for Scott because both of their vehicles cross path on 147.
Okay, and
Guys?
somebody asked who's Brackenheimer?
That's the first time I heard that one. Panel?
Isn't that the name
Ingrid?
Kim said?
I was told by Kim that was Holly's question, and so I had missed it. I didn't catch it, but I'm I'm not for sure, and I can't even recall hearing that name
Yeah,
before.
well, that's something definitely worth checking up on.
And
Or is
then
that guy who was the murderer? The convicted
I'm
murderer
not
that
for
called
sure.
Teresa? I don't know. I don't know that
Yes,
name offhand.
yes, that's not familiar to me. Millbilly,
And
is that
somebody
name
asked,
familiar?
is
Yes.
for hunters out there, is it normal to shower before hunting? My
Yeah.
thinking is they do not.
They have special soaps that
Okay.
smell like earth.
Okay.
They also have sprays that you spray on yourself to mask your scent.
Yes.
Typically, every hunter I know, including myself, we hang our hunting clothes outside before we go hunting, so it smells like outside.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Right. So, guys, we can clearly see here. This is where the story divulges 180 degrees. Either Bobby is correct or Stephen is correct, because both stories are mutually exclusive. You can't have both events taking place.
And that's why they're
Right?
telling Barb when they're en route to the hospital, your stories aren't making sense. As of right now, you, her son, and Stephen Avery are one of the last two people to see Stephen alive, so
Correct.
your son is a
Correct.
suspect too.
Correct. In fact, guys, I'll ask the panel, how are you going to differentiate between Bobby and Stephen at this point? Bobby even stated that he saw Teresa Halbach on the property. He could have kept quiet. He could have just simply said, "Sorry, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. I was in the shower." And he was asked, did he hear any screaming coming from the trailer? And he said, no, he heard nothing. Susan, do you have a comment?
He also told his brother that he saw her leave.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. That he saw. So where did this story come from? So
That's why he tells him that the
Milby,
first time he talks to him on the 5th when he goes to get the puppy.
yes.
Barb tries
So
coming on the property first. They detain her, arrest her for THC. Then
yes,
Bobby tries coming on to get the dog. They detain him at the checkpoint. They eventually let him get the dog, but then
yes,
they also make him give statements.
Okay.
And
I
that's where
have a
he gives the
little.
statement for the CRV
yes,
being bluish green. He also states that he did see her,
yes.
but then his story starts to change.
Correct. Sammy, do you have a question?
Okay, I
Comment.
have to bring up Brackenheimer again.
Yes.
That's who they were talking about, and they were saying he's maybe being Scott Blodern's wife's brother, they think.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
does that make sense now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Oh boy. Yeah, I mean that's a perfect one for TTT, right?
I guess so. Thank you
Yes.
so much. I'm sorry for all the interruption.
Oh, pleasure. Susan, do you have a comment?
Didn't it say Scott Blodern's sister's husband, not his wife's husband, or not his wife's? Scott didn't have a wife.
No,
Okay.
not at that stage. No. Okay.
No, not at that time.
All right. Okay. Well, that's definitely something to look into. But for me, this is the interesting point right here. Either Bobby's lying or Stephen's lying, because you can't have both events taking place. And it's interesting that both Scott and Bobby gave damaging testimony against Stephen. So remember, this is Scott's potential brother-in-law and Bobby's uncle. And, they didn't hesitate to go to court and give this evidence, these statements. So one of them must be lying, either either Stephen or Bobby is. The stories just do not add up. So one way of thinking about this, guys, and I know we're going to finish soon, is that the reason why Bobby spoke was that he knew his uncle saw him leave. So he would have had to have given a reason why he left, So that's why he asked Scott to be his alibi, to say, yeah, I did leave. And because remember, we have the disappearance of Teresa. We have both Bobby and Scott seeing each other and their phones pinging all in the same location. Very interesting. Guys, do we have any final quick comments?
Well, and doesn't Scott say that the day they convicted Steve was the best day of his life? Something to that effect?
Correct. Yes, he did. Linda.
Isn't
do you have a
that
comment?
odd?
That's very, very odd. Correct. Linda, do you have a comment?
I'd just like to say, well, that it's been, by Bobby's own words, that he has seen her leave. So he was obviously the one lying.
Correct. But what was his motive to lie in court? Was he just basically saving his own skin? Does Bobby actually know what happened to Teresa? Did Bobby hear something? And one wonders whether Brendan had heard information from his brother. Right? It's the whole system is bizarre. Yet, isn't it true, Millbilly, that Bobby was re-interviewed by Deidre in 2017?
Yes, he was.
And didn't Bobby say, "Well, I didn't do anything"?
It was
And Deidre
November
did, and
17th, 2017.
that's it. So, why would he go back and re-interview Bobby in 2017? Why?
Because his story wasn't making sense.
No, his story wasn't
And
making sense.
everybody flip-flopped.
Yes. Yes.
Got affidavits from everybody stating that their stories have now changed.
Correct.
Blaine,
Correct.
Brian, all the other ones refused to talk to her.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. Susan, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say that Bobby, in the 2017 interview, or 16, what was it? He said, I know deep down that I didn't do it.
Yes.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, look, what I like to do, because I'm conscious of the time and the discussion and the questions have been excellent as usual, I like to finish on slide 165. Now, I did a presentation on Brendan Dassey's vulnerabilities, and I urge the listeners, if you haven't seen it, to go and see the video. It's on the Foul Play channel. And we mustn't forget, this is a story of Brendan Dassey as well, because he's serving life in prison as well for the murder, sexual assault of Teresa Halbach as well, with no forensic evidence against him. Just what I personally believe is coerced testimony. Here's the tragedy, and it started very, very early on when a Detective O'Neill questioned Brendan at Crivets. I think it was November the 5th or the 6th that he got questioned. Millbilly, do you remember the exact date? I think it was the 5th or the 6th when the detectives went up there to talk to him.
I believe it was this. Wait, 6th.
Yeah, there. I've got all the dates in my presentation, but it was very, very early on. Detective O'Neill spoke with Brendan, and the very first thing that Brendan said was, we got off the bus, me and my brother Blaine, we walked all the way home, and that was it. We didn't see Teresa, her vehicle, or Stephen. Then something happened. Skolinski called O'Neill out of the car. Skolinski told O'Neill that the bus driver, Lisa Buchner, had on the Saturday, I believe, went to a cross point, a checkpoint, and said, oh, by the way, I saw a female photographer take pictures when I let the boys off at the bus stop. The Avery Salvage Yard has got a bus stop at the end of Avery Road. Well, this was interesting because now you had another witness who saw a female photographer take pictures of, I think she said, a van, and at the time that she let the boys off. So now O'Neill completely changed his question and said, and started pressuring Brendan by saying, oh, we know that your bus driver that let you off at the end of Avery Road, she said that she saw a photographer take pictures of a van. And everyone on the bus, that is the other students, also saw this. Well, Brendan must be thinking, wait a minute, I didn't see anything, but if the detective is telling me that our bus driver saw a female photographer taking pictures, then it must be true. So Brendan changed his story. Brendan then said, oh, that's right. We stood on the side of the road and we saw Teresa in her car drive out. So he basically stood on the side of the road and now he saw Teresa's car drive out. That's it. But he got further questioning by O'Neill because O'Neill thought that Brendan was hiding something, right? So Brendan went from, I didn't see Teresa or her vehicle, to saying, oh, yeah, that's right, I saw her drive past us, right? But O'Neill didn't believe it. And Brendan changed his story again. But he said, oh, that's right, I saw Teresa taking pictures of the van and I saw my uncle. So he now completely changed his recollections. He now inserted himself into the story. But the problem was this. The bus driver lets off the boys at the end of Avery Road at 3:45. Susan, do you have a comment?
I'm just wondering if anybody has looked into Lisa Buckner and if she had any reasons to.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at my presentation, you're going to start crying, right? Because it's unbelievable. So the detective never checked Lisa Buckner, her story, the veracity of her story. He just accepted her on face value that Lisa Buckner saw Teresa on Halloween, right? So therefore, if Lisa saw Teresa on Halloween when she dropped the boys off, then that implied that, well, Brendan must have seen Teresa as well. So Brendan changed his story to suit what the bus driver said. But here's the problem. The bus driver dropped the boys off at 3:45, right? Which means that we're talking about an hour over when apparently Teresa was last seen. So how on earth can you have Teresa being shackled up in Stephen's trailer if she's still outside 1 hour after she arrived? Obi-Wan, do you have a quick comment?
She then changed. Didn't she change her story and say that she had the date mixed up from an earlier
Yes.
date and time?
Yes. So during the trial, this is the tragedy. We're talking about like a year later, right? During the trial, she said, she was asked, so was it on the Friday? Was it on October the 31st that you saw the photographer? I can't remember. Was it during that week? I can't remember. Was it a month ago? I can't remember. So the disgraceful thing is this. The state knew that Lisa had made an error. The state knew that Teresa Halbach had photographed vehicles many times before on other days, right? And what they do is when they sell a vehicle, they usually put it at the front of Avery Road, right at the front near the offices where Dolores's home is, where the letterboxes are. So Lisa Buchner actually got the date wrong. Yes, she did see Teresa taking pictures, but not on the 31st. So when the boys got dropped off, there was no Teresa taking pictures of any vehicle at the front. And when Brendan said, hey, look, me and my brother Blaine, we just walked home and we went in our home, he was correct. He was telling the truth. Now, here's the disappointing thing. Skalinski talked to Blaine with his mother at a hotel the day before interviewing Brendan. And
No,
Blaine said,
I think it was a Subway restaurant.
yes, at a restaurant, but Barb was there.
Yes.
And apparently a big fight broke out because Blaine didn't change. He goes, nope, me and my brother got off the bus where we normally get let off, and we walked all the way home down this gravel road, and we both went inside. Brendan, I think, went to his room, started playing video games. Blaine was doing something else.
They actually discuss on their way to the house on who's going to get to use the phone first.
Correct.
Because they can't use the phone and use the
and the
computer
internet
at the same time.
Yes. Yes. So one can see the tragedy here, guys, right? Brendan said the truth, but Brendan was willing to change his story to fit what Lisa said, because Brendan obviously had trust in the bus driver and trust in the detective. But unfortunately, it was tragic because he changed his story. So as a consequence, that's when Fassbender and Wiegert came into the story and interrogated Brendan, because they believed that Brendan was hiding something. Yet Blaine, who was shoulder to shoulder with his brother, said, no, we both walked home and we went inside. We didn't see anybody or hear anybody. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, do we know if there was any other females that were there present on Avery's property, like an earlier date and time taking pictures other than Teresa? Like, you have
yes, there was another photographer. Bibi, do you remember her name?
No, but she's a
Kathy
DOJ
Williford?
agent.
Williford.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Williford.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's a DOJ agent, ironically.
Right. Yes. Yes. So yes, there was Obi-Wan. There was another female photographer taking pictures, but here's the disingenuous thing, right? The state knew because the state had photographs of the vehicles that Teresa took, and those vehicles were at the front of the Avery salvage yard where they put the cars. Susan.
Steve states in one of the phone calls that Teresa is the only one from Auto Trader that has ever been out there.
Okay. But there was another photographer. Maybe she took photographs of the vehicles at the front. But with this one, with Teresa, it was Stephen that had organized the photography of the van. And the van, Barb's van, was down near their properties. It wasn't at the front. So it was a different situation here where the van was at the back. Yes.
One of the times that Teresa Halbach came to take pictures, as she was leaving, she was flagged down by Tom Yonda to do a hustle shot.
Right. Yes. Correct. But the point here, guys, is that poor
My
Brendan.
point is, multiple
Yes,
people knew that she was on that property multiple different times. I've
Correct.
heard somewhere where after one time she came, Bobby Dassey mentioned to Stephen, "Oh, I seen your girlfriend came again."
Yes, that is correct. That's correct. So it was no big deal for Teresa to be on that property, and Teresa was not scared of going to the property to take photographs. And it's really bad how Ken Kratz tried to imply that one time when Stephen came out in a bathrobe, he obviously had either had a shower or was in his swimming pool.
He was
that
in the
somehow
swimming pool.
Teresa
He was in the
swimming pool. Correct.
He says
Correct.
it. He said,
Yes.
I had just gotten out the pool. I
Yes.
put a towel on. I answered
Yes.
the door with a towel. I mean, what do you do? I
Yes.
dried off. I just got out the swimming pool.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
that's not unusual.
yes, but Ken Kratz, I mean, let's be honest, guys. Have you ever had a shower and your front doorbell rings because you got a delivery or someone's at the door, and you go to the door and say, "Oh, look, guys, yeah,
That's
can we?"
always when it happens.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly
when you're
right.
soaked up.
That's exactly right. How many
Yeah.
times does a front doorbell ring when you're expecting a delivery or something, and you're in a towel or a shirt, and you go, "Look, guys, can you come back?" or whatever. Yeah, my point is, Ken Kratz tried to turn that around as him being a sexual pervert, being in a
Yeah.
towel, and that Teresa was upset and didn't want to come back because Stephen obviously was this nasty sexual predator. Whereas all he did was he had a swim in his swimming pool. Someone knocked on the door and he went to investigate who it was. Now, please, I know, why we know why Ken Kratz did it, because he's painting Stephen in a real bad light. But clearly, that's ridiculous. Sammy, do you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to throw it out there. One more name, the Zipperers. Handed
Oh,
over a
yes.
white bag left by Teresa to LE. This contained Auto Trader brochures. What if Stephen's magazine came from this bag? So that's
No,
just
no,
another, hey, think about this.
no.
I honestly believe that she made it there to Zipperers.
Millbilly.
Yeah, she made the zipper. She made the Avery. She left.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Now, look, guys, again, an excellent discussion. We've actually done a few slides, but I'd like to finish with slide 166. And I think it's real poignant because during a phone call, during one of Stephen Avery's phone calls, he states, the evidence don't make no sense. And guys, we've already spoken for over 2 hours, and the evidence really doesn't make sense. And I'd like to leave the final comment, guys. I'll read it out. The state presented a murder scenario that could not be backed up forensically. Guys, can we please have a quick final comment from the panel? Bibi, do you have a final comment?
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Bibi, for your comments. Kelly, do you have a final comment?
No, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, tonight, wherever you are in the world. Join us on Discord if you want, and we can continue the chats. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Fantastic. Christy, do you have a final comment?
I'm just going to echo exactly what Kelly just said.
Yes, yes, and thank you guys for all your contributions. Millbilly, do you have a final comment? Millbilly, do you have a final comment? Or you've had,
I'd just like to encourage people to listen to this audio we all are
yes,
getting because it's so important and so relevant to why things happen and what
yes,
took place.
yeah, and the other important thing is this, guys. We have a huge number of phone calls that have been placed up by Zoe on our server, and also Millbilly has also put up a lot of the calls on his YouTube channel, his excellent YouTube channel. And we're very fortunate that Christy has listened to hundreds of hours of calls, and her favorite friend at the moment is Jody and Debbie. Is that right, Christy?
I'm kind of missing Debbie right now. I've had enough of Jody. Judging by my list, it looks like we're going to call Debbie back in about 10 phone calls. So I'm kind of looking forward to talking to Debbie, but I am on call. I'm on 775.
My Lord. Okay. And we're very fortunate because Christy is doing a précis of each one of the calls. And she actually states if a call is really important, to listen to that call. And we thank you so much, Christy, for your hard work, and Millbilly, of course, as well. Susan, do you have a final comment?
I just wanted to tell Christy, I was just rewatching Ma'am 1 yesterday and today, and Debbie is very much at the trial, sitting next to Dolores.
Yes.
How
I
funny is it?
didn't know her before.
How
Yes.
funny is it that none of us, how many times have we all watched this show? I've never seen that woman before. Never. Never
No.
even knew she existed till the first time I heard her voice.
No, that's right. Exactly right. And it goes to show you think you know everything after you watch Ma'am 1, but clearly after you listen to our podcast and rewatch Ma'am, you pick up so much more detail and information. And when you combine the work of Christy, Millbilly, you pick up even more stuff because of the phone calls. All the glue is starting to come together. All the jigsaw pieces are starting to come together as a really interesting puzzle. Bibi, do you have a quick comment?
I love that Debbie worked her way to the front of the courtroom so she could be within smelling distance of Steve.
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yuck.
And not only that, she's got a big smile on her face. And now,
Yeah.
thanks to Christy, we now know why.
Well, here's a tidbit for you. I talked to somebody. I'll let them remain nameless for now, but I've talked to somebody who, we'll just call them a member of the family.
Yes.
Nobody had any clue what Debbie was really all about.
Oh my Lord.
Nobody had any clue. They were shocked. They were completely shocked. You might want to be careful when you hear these phone calls because they get a little nasty. And this person was completely shocked. They had met Debbie. They knew Debbie. They talked to Debbie and had no idea that that was going on or that Debbie was anything like that. Debbie's a dirty girl.
So if I say the term, I know it's a bit cheeky of me, Debbie does Wisconsin. Does that ring a bell? A true bell, Christy?
Oh my God.
Yeah, we can do something. We can do something like that.
Yes. We could do that for a TTT. for a Tuesday or a
Sounds
Thursday.
perfect.
no.
Yes. Obi-Wan, do you have a quick final comment?
I just say thanks for inviting me on.
Pleasure.
And I wanted to thank everybody for joining also.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much. Linda, do you have a final comment?
Just to thank you guys. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I love all the information, especially the phone calls. And I want to encourage everybody to listen to them as many times as you can, because I have listened to just about every single one. I'm only a couple short, but they are so telling, and it really put a new perspective on the case for me.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
I agree with you 100%, Linda. 100%. I have a completely different feel for certain people in that family now.
Yeah.
You almost feel like you know them. I feel like they were
Yes.
supposed to be on my Christmas list this year.
Oh,
Exactly.
yes.
And I do know some of them personally, so it is really telling. I think that it's really put a whole different perspective on the case having them, and I love that you guys are doing it, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. And look, I and the whole panel would personally like to thank our guest researchers today, Linda and Susan. And please check out Linda's excellent YouTube channel. And thank you so much, guys. You add a new dimension to our podcast. Like I said, we keep a casual approach, but clearly we discuss a lot of good information. Not one person knows the entire case, but collectively together, and also with the excellent questions from our audience, we do a really nice a nice presentation where we learn a lot. We're always learning on this case. Sammy, do you have a final quick comment?
I would just like to thank everyone, including guilters that come on here. I have no
course.
problem with it. Welcome everyone. And I would like to keep this a good neutral place for everyone to come
For sure.
to voice
sure.
either their opinion or even offer more information if they feel we're
Yes.
misinformed. And thank you all
Fantastic.
for coming and joining us every single time. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, look, guys, thank you very much for an excellent podcast. I value all your contribution and I value questions. As Sammy said, guilters, non-guilters, we're all here to find the truth. And that's not forgetting why we're all here for. Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining us on our podcast. And we hope to catch you all next week. Thank you very much.
Everyone have a
Bye-bye.
nice weekend.
Happy New Year.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.